The attack on Pearl Harbor, also known as the Battle of Pearl Harbor, the Hawaiian Operation or Operation Owl by the Japanese Imperial General Headquarters and Operation Z during planning was a surprise military strike by the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service against the United States naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii Territory on the morning of December 7th, 1941. The attack led to the United States entry into World War II. Japan intended the attack as preventative action to keep the U.S. Pacific Fleet from interfering with military actions they planned in Southeast Asia against overseas territories of the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, and the United States. Over the next 7 hours, there were coordinated Japanese attacks on the U.S. held Philippines, Guam, and Wake Island, and on the British Empire and Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong.
The Battle of Stalingrad was a major battle on the Eastern Front of World War II, in which Nazi Germany and its allies fought the Soviet Union for control of the city of Stalingrad, in southern Russia on the eastern boundary of Europe. Marked by fierce close-quarters combat and direct assaults on civilians by air raids, it is often regarded as one of the single largest and bloodiest battles in the history of warfare. German forces never regained the initiative in the east and withdrew a vast military force from the west to replace their losses. The German offensive to capture Stalingrad began in August 1942, using the German Sixth Army and elements of the Fourth Panzer Army. The attack was supported by intensive Luftwaffe bombing that reduced much of the city to rubble. The fighting degenerated into house-to-house fighting, and both sides poured reinforcements into the city. By mid-November 1942, the Germans had pushed... You good? The Germans had pushed Soviet defenders back at great cost in the narrow zones along the west bank of the Volga River. On 19th November 1942, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, a two-pronged attack targeting the weaker Romanian and Hungarian armies, protecting the German Sixth Army's flanks. The Axis forces on the flanks were overrun, and the Sixth Army was cut off and surrounded in the Stalingrad area. Adolf Hitler ordered that army stay in Stalingrad and make no attempt to break out. Instead, attempts were made to supply the army by air and to break the encirclement from the outside. Having fighting continued for another 2 months, by the beginning of February 1943, the Axis forces in Stalingrad had exhausted their ammunition and food.
On November 8, 1942, the military forces of the United States and the United Kingdom launched an amphibious operation against French North Africa, and in particular the French-held territories of Algeria and Morocco. The landing, codenamed Torch, reflected the results of a long and continuous arguments between British and American planners about the future course of the Allied strategy. Arguments that were finally stilled by the intervention of the American president, Franklin D. Roosevelt. In both a direct and indirect sense, Torch's impact was enormous on the course of American strategy during the remainder of the war. It may have been the most important strategic decision that the Allied leaders would make. In fact, this amphibious operation eventually postponed the landing in France until 1944. But at the same time, it allowed the United States to complete mobilization of the immense industrial and manpower resources for the titanic air and ground battles that characterized the Allied campaigns of 1944.
Roosevelt had launched America's war effort with an invasion of North America because it offered an easy start. Critics had argued that it committed the U.S. to a broader war strategy. And they proved correct. In 1943, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill convinced Roosevelt that the next target should be Italy. American General George Marshall argued that the Russians still needed to be relieved, and therefore the U.S. should launch a large cross-channel invasion of German-occupied France. But Churchill was anxious to strengthen British interests in the Mediterranean to ensure that the British, not the Russians, controlled this territory at the end of the war. Churchill added, for the Allied troops already deployed in America, Italy was just a short hop away. Roosevelt ultimately agreed. Cross-channel invasion would be put on hold for a year, while Allied forces prepared to attack Germany through its soft underbelly. They would cross from North Africa to Sicily and from there to Italy. The Allied invasion of Sicily was preceded by a wonderful piece of deception codenamed Operation Mice Meat.